we must never surrender to oppression. And as I was taught in Uganda, never, never, never surrender. Never, never, never surrender.
Hey there, and welcome to Fanya Mambo Africa. Always an exciting time. And guess what? This time again, we're back with Senior Counsel Martha Karua herself. So good to see you.
Nice to see you. You changed your name.
We haven't changed.
Fanya Mambo
Africa is the name of the show. The company is Alfa House.
Okay.
Yes.
So Fanya Mambo had Fanya Mambo here.
Yes, he always also visits himself.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Good. Great. Good to see you smiling.
Nice to
or
see
lively.
you. No, it depends on which mood you catch me on.
It's a good day.
If I'm being deported, I'll be smiling because it's silly.
How are you smiling and you're stuck at an airport, by the way? Because that was a bit confusing. You looked like someone who was just happy and going through it, but...
No, if I'm being deported home is a happy place. So I'm going back home. The experience is unpleasant, but it's okay. If that's the worst you want to do to me, that's fine.
Yeah. What kind of interrogation did they put you through at that?
They did not put me through any interrogation, other than the questions I was asked by the immigration officer. Why are you coming here? And I said I'm a guest of the East Africa Law Society, and I'm also a citizen of the Jumuiya, entitled to enter without questions. And they asked for an invitation letter, and I told him it's not necessary because I'm a member of the organization that I'm going to visit. Yeah.
Okay.
So at that stage, he said he will go and ask his supervisor. I think they flagged off my passport and name because that reaction was unusual. I'd been there before for the same case. So he asked me to go sit at the back while we wait for the supervisor. While at the back of the immigration queue where there are some seats, I saw my friend Lynn and Gloria, a council member of the Law Society. They were also brought, and they told me similarly they'd been told to wait. We waited. After 1 hour, a person who identified as the supervisor told us, sorry, instructions, sir, you cannot enter. We are not going to allow you to enter. So one of the ladies asked, why? And she said, I don't know. It's orders from above. So we decided not to bother the lady again, because if she also didn't understand, that's the end of it. And we were kept at the immigration area for 6 hours. After 3 hours, we asked, no water, no nothing. We asked to be taken to a cafeteria. And we were taken upstairs where there's a KFC. We bought ourselves something to eat. Then towards the tail end, 5 hours have passed, and we've already posted that we are there detained so the world knows. I get the Kenya Airways desk officer coming to us. They had earlier come to suggest that we pay to alter the schedule on our tickets so that we can return with the afternoon flight. Mind you, we landed at 9 a.m. The immigration people, after telling us we could not enter, regretted that the plane we had come with had just left. Therefore, we have to wait for the next. So Kenya Airways was sent to us to tell us to pay, and we told them, no, you are deporting us, you pay. So 1 hour to the being deported, the ambassador accredited to Tanzania by Kenya, Mr. Jenga, called me through the phone of the Kenya Airways desk officer. He comes talking on phone and tells me, madam, the ambassador wants to speak to you. After I learn it's the ambassador to Kenya, I speak to him. He says they are trying their best. I don't know what their best was, because after half an hour, the Kenya Airways officer comes back telling us our tickets are ready. And we are taken to migration. By then, we had already been taken by Tanzanian officials to the baggage area to collect our baggage when there was nobody else and there was no flight coming. It was just the three of us being taken to pick our baggages to return to the inside. And they were locked up at a female cell. We were not locked up. We were not handcuffed. So the three of us were there conversing. That's why we could afford a smile. The only torture is psychological. Because make no mistake about it, we were under arrest but not handcuffed because we could not move freely. So we were detained at the airport and then deported. Our passports were held until they gave us at the gate. And when going through immigration, we noticed they were writing something and stamping. When I checked my passport after it was returned to me, it was written entry. Denied, yeah. Something like not allowed or denied. One of the two, yeah.
Okay. That was your case. And now that maybe you've spoken to Boniface Mwangi, how is he and how was his experience?
Boni is recovering. He had a horrible experience together with Agatha Tuhaire of a human rights defender and lawyer from Tanzania.
From Uganda.
From Uganda. They were held for 3 days of maximum torture. Bound like animals and tortured. And he says he could hear the officers shouting at Agatha next door, even threatening rape. We haven't spoken to Agatha, but I know that, like Boni, she's injured. Yeah, Boni has spent one night in hospital. He's still in hospital. He's unwell. The swelling on his feet is, beginning to reduce. Today he looks better than yesterday. But you can imagine torture to the extent that you cannot walk, you cannot stand on your own. You have to be assisted. He had to be taken to the aircraft with a wheelchair. And the same when he reached Nairobi. Yeah.
So when let's say, now Boni is a Kenyan citizen.
Yeah.
When a Kenyan citizen gets tortured in a country like Tanzania, because fine, it's a foreign country, but it's a country that's
within
our
the
immediate.
Jumuiya, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What are the possible scenarios of what next?
In every situation, the passport we hold, and you can check your passport, is in the name of your country. And all foreign countries are asked to receive you in the name of your country. Therefore, it was very astounding to hear Musalia Mudavadi talk like somebody totally ignorant of procedures, immigration and foreign relations. When your national is held, even if it were for a criminal offense, you first inquire about their welfare. And if it's not for a criminal offense, you ask why. And you get assurance they are going to be treated in a humane manner. It is like the way he spoke while on Citizen. I have no doubt that Kenya government was complicit in the torture of Boniface Mwangi. They must have known that something is going on and they let it happen. Why do they pretend to write a letter the day he is released? Obviously, they said they were communicating. We thought he was at immigration being deported when Mudavadi was talking. Mudavadi knew more. He said, no, he's not at immigration. He's with the Tanzanian police near the airport. What were they doing? Interrogating him for what? By then, Mudavadi should have known if there is any crime Boniface is charged with. They have not charged him with anything because there was nothing to charge him for. He had entered lawfully. He had been allowed to enter. But just because he tweeted something while at the hotel, they went to the hotel to search, to arrest him, to demand for his phone, for his computer. And when they could not find him, they held him and tortured him. That's the Tanzania you have, which we say is not the Tanzania of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, who used to welcome all people struggling against oppression. Tanzania was the leading nation in supporting freedom struggles, whether it's for Namibia, for South Africa, for Mozambique, name it. Tanzania was number one in giving a safe haven. Even as students, during our years, anybody expelled from the University of Nairobi for being outspoken, they were being received in Dar and given education, Mukisa Kitui, and many others. When James Orengo was being persecuted by the KANU regime as an MP, he fled to Tanzania. Tanzania was the home of the oppressed, where they were welcomed in warmth. The leadership of CCM and Mama Samia Suluhu has done a 360-degree turn. Tanzania is the home of horrific torture, horrific violation of human rights. As we speak, an activist from Tanzania, well-known activist, Julius Nyerere, who disappeared over 100 days ago. He was picked by people believed to be police, Tanzanian police, from his home in a very bloody confrontation. Videos by his family show a house littered with blood. And he has not been heard of since. His crime, just being outspoken against the government of Mama Samia. Now, these are foreigners, as they call them, East Africans, but not nationals of Uganda, but nationals of the Jumuiya, tortured for 3 days non-stop.
Okay, from the way this whole scenario has played out, and you've said you feel the government was complicit of this whole affair, then what would make the presidents of East Africa to conspire to such a thing?
Only them who can answer. Perhaps William Ruto, Mama Samia, and Yoweri Museveni can answer that. But they have definitely collaborated in the oppression of their citizens. You will remember that Maria Sarungi, who lives here, was abducted and was on her way to being renditioned back to Tanzania. She fought, and when it leaked out, Kenyans on Twitter and various other people around the world came on to the matter, and she was released before she could be transported to Tanzania. If Julius Nyerere, who lives in Tanzania, has disappeared without trace, what would have been the fate of Maria? Last year, just when they were having elections for local government, an official of the Chadema, the main opposition party, was abducted from a bus. He later turned up dead and dosed in acid. Members of Chadema have been harassed. The first day I went to court to observe the case of Tundu Lissu, I found a scene that had just ended confrontation, because I arrived that morning with a 9 o'clock plane. By the minute I arrived in court, it was 10:30, only to hear of bloody confrontations that were there before I arrived. Several officials of Chadema were arrested, some with broken limbs. Members of the public were brutalized. One died. The other one was bitten by a police dog, deliberately unleashed on him. We managed to enter the court unnoticed as observers. We were introduced in court, and I found Western diplomats accredited to Tanzania observing. We all observed. When I came out, I addressed the press. It's not a crime to say what you have seen. There was a denial, a violation of the rights of Tundu Lissu. They had refused to bring him to court physically. They were forcing him to observe the proceedings virtually. He refused, and his lawyers protested vehemently. The court ruled against the request that he be brought personally. But I believe due to pressure from all quarters, the court overturned itself. And on the 19th, the day we were prevented from being there to observe, Tundu Lissu appeared physically in court. I saw footage. The Western diplomats were still in court. Can someone tell me how it is okay for Western diplomats to be observers, but not for citizens of the Jumuiya? And if we were barred from entering Tanzania because I, Martha Karua, had previously made a statement, what about the two ladies accompanying me, Lini Ngoge and the Council Member of Law Society, Gloria Kimani? What about Dr. Willy Mutunga, Chief Justice Emeritus? What about Khalid Hussein and Hanifa? They hadn't been there before. So this is an excuse, an afterthought that is being given because the pressure from all corners of the world is rising. Then the president of Tanzania, the same day on Monday, Mama Samia Suluhu, makes a statement saying that foreign activists, without naming Kenya, are not welcome to Tanzania, especially after spoiling their nation. They are now going to spoil Tanzania. Tanzania proves now to be the capital of torture. The level of torture Boniface Mwangi and Agatha Tuhaire have been subjected to is something undescribable. The level of hostility shown by the Tanzanian government against Kenyans, 6 of us, should have warranted an immediate request for explanation by the Kenyan state. The Kenyan state officials, including Musalia Mudavadi, are paid by our taxes.
Why do you think Musalia Mudavadi sounded like he is in support of the Tanzanian president?
He was quite gleeful. That is the stand of the William Ruto regime. He is a delegate of William Ruto. And they pretend to write a letter to ask what is happening. The 4th day, we were deported on Sunday. Yesterday is when they were writing. How very bright of them. They think we can't see through that. The very first day, they ought to have protested the way we were treated. The Jumuiya is about people, ease of movement of people, and trade, mainly. It's also to encourage each other on the rule of law, good governance, democracy, and human rights. How can Kenya aid and abet the barring of its own citizens? It looks like the heads of state are personalizing the state and the Jumuiya, using it so that if your statements have rubbed any one of them the wrong way, they use state powers to oppress you.
That's very sad and looks like it actually. But when you look at on the larger perspective, would it be then there is a scare across East Africa on the human rights activist movement? And then why would it scare the presidents? Because it's not the first time it's coming out. If anything, like Kenya, for instance, it's been more active in the previous years than now, perhaps.
It's actually against citizens and generally anybody speaking out. If you look at Uganda, the supporters of Bobi Wine's political party, NUP, have been routinely abducted and tortured by state operatives. You saw Besigye being abducted and renditioned from Nairobi. Up to now, he's still facing trial with Obed Lutale. Last year, July, 36 members of Besigye's party were abducted from Kisumu, where they were having a workshop, renditioned to Uganda. Their military trial cases were only dropped last week. I have mentioned what is happening in Tanzania, and you have seen how they treated us. Back to Kenya, you saw the mass killing of especially the youth after the Gen Z protests. Hundreds injured, some very gravely. Close to 100 disappeared. Up to today, nobody knows where they are. You have seen court cases relating to abductions as we speak. 2 out of the Mlolongo 4 have not been found. 2 turned up dead. 2 have not been found. And you saw the response. When the court asked where are these people, mysteriously they were released one by one, except the ones I've mentioned, turned up dead and are missing. We've seen other spades of abductions, foreign nationals, refugees legitimately in Kenya, like the 4 Turkish nationals, returned to their country contrary to local and international law. I would like Kenyans to know, Kenya has an extradition act. And our constitution talks of due process. The act says if you want to move anyone, whether foreign or local, to another country for trial, you must go to court. So if the state is repatriating you on behalf of another state, it has to go to court so that you have a chance of resisting. So abducting Besigye and Lutale and renditioning him, or the 36 from Kisumu, is states gone rogue. Kenya and Uganda playing rogue states, breaking the law, Kenyan law, Ugandan law, East African community law, African Charter on Human and People's Rights, and international law. A state is supposed to enforce the law, not break it. You can see in Tanzania, they've gone a notch higher to add torture, brutal torture, and not for a day or two, for 3 days against citizens, not to mention holding them illegally. Because Tanzania, like Kenya, there's a constitutional limit of how long you can hold somebody without taking them to court. And then dumping them. Agatha was dumped at the farthest border, Mutukula. Mutukula is more than 1,000 kilometers from Dar es Salaam. What is the logic? Boni was dumped in Mombasa, Lungalunga, necessitating him to go to the North Coast because that was South Coast, and necessitating his family because he was unable to walk to go for him and then return to Nairobi. That's another form of torture. We cannot, as citizens of East Africa, take this lying down. I believe there are grounds to sue the Kenya government for dereliction of duty to protect its citizens, the government of Tanzania in Tanzanian courts in the first place for breaching their own law, the constitution, and their laws to torture people, and in the East African court for violation of the treaty, and if possible, in the African Court on Human and People's Rights for violating the torture. We must look for ways and means of holding these governments to account. East African community belongs to the citizens, not to the leaders. They can't use it as they please. It's about us, not about them. Even a state is about the people, not the leader. Leaders come and go. My call to the citizens of East Africa, this is our time. We must seize the moment to transform East Africa forever, to make sure that, just like the Constitutive Act of the Jumuiya says, there is rule of law, there is democracy, there is good governance, and there is absolute respect for human rights.
I hope the citizens are taking note of that because it's very important. Something that is also concerning people is how we have two former Chief Justices in Kenya. Chief Justice Dr. Willy Mutunga and there is Justice Maraga.
Yeah.
What would warrant that one is allowed in and even attends the court hearing, then the other one is detained at the airport? And they're both Chief Justices who I believe hold diplomatic passports for that matter.
I will not understand that because both of them were coming to the case for the first time, but they are known differently because Willy has been outspoken on matters human rights, especially within Kenya. Maraga is a new entrant into that area. I do not know how he was accorded the courtesy to enter while others were being denied, and whether, I know he commented about it when he reached Kenya. I don't know whether he commented about it in Tanzania. Only him can answer, and the Tanzanian authorities.
Okay. Yeah. What would make then President Suluhu to cite Kenya as, I don't know how, if I translate the words, if I get the right words, but as a failed country? Because now, she said, wakosa adabu ambao nchi yao imeanguka or something.
So, what's to that effect? So perhaps the CS for Foreign Affairs, Musalia Mudavadi, can tell us what he was so gleeful about when the entire country has been insulted. By now, they should have protested those remarks. But how can they protest those remarks when Dr. Ruto himself went to China to claim that Tanzania and Uganda and Rwanda are not as good as Kenya? He made a gaffe also. It looks like we have heads of state, at least two of them, who do not know diplomatic etiquette and how to treat other countries. Yeah.
That's quite, I found it quite absurd in a way. And then there's the issue of people, or rather some critics citing this as paid activism. So number one, is activism a crime? And number two, even if it was paid, if you're fighting for, let's say, human rights.
Paid by who? Only a paid blogger. And I'll mark these words. Only a paid blogger can be negative about people going to observe cases. We observe in Kenya. Would they rather that we left people to be oppressed while we are silent? Even to get our own independence, Kenyans had to give their lives. There were so many Kenyans from all parts of Kenya as activists for the freedom and liberation of Kenya. For us to get a new constitution, the 2010, people lost their lives. And I spent my youth being an activist for that cause. This is not the first time. But for people who admire oppression because oppression pays them, for the paid blogger, expect they will say anything. Nobody in their right mind would see anything wrong with solidarity with the oppressed. Solidarity is the only way out of difficult situations. Even when, as Kenyans, when there is a funeral or a wedding, we go in solidarity to contribute to help that family. It just shows you that in human relations, solidarity is key to every aspect of our life. And that is why I must condemn. If you cannot support, please hold your peace. Do not insult people's intelligence, because you're trying to make people think that there is something wrong with one person or a neighbor going to help another. When there is fire in your neighborhood, you know your house too can catch fire. Without thinking, you rush outside to help. When you reach the scene of an accident, you don't ask who it is or whether it's your relative or somebody you know. You reach out to help. Is it a person in their right mind, using their 5 common senses, who can question people standing up for the rights of others? We shall continue to stand for the rights of everyone. And I personally cannot be deterred by such remarks.
Do you think this whole happening scares young activists, especially because when you see how these senior citizens, for that matter, who are actually very, like they're respected people in society, you're a respected member of society. When young activists see this, does it now lower their spirits and maybe make them give up on the fight?
It is meant to do exactly that. But if you saw the jubilation with which young people and people of all ages met me at the airport singing "We Shall Never Surrender," it tells you no. It has done the opposite. The spirit of liberation within East Africa is spreading. It's spreading in Uganda, in Tanzania, in Kenya. It's at its best. You saw the defense of Kenyans by Kenyans on Twitter. Where our government failed, the government of the people, the Kenyans on Twitter, even now they are not done. They're still defending. And they very ably called for the release of Boniface Mwangi, Agatha Atuhaire. Even before we were deported, Kenyans were already on the case when they learned that we have been bad. I just want to say thank you. Thank you to all those who have risen up to speak out against oppression in any form. By defending my right, or by me defending your right, I am defending my own rights, because if we allow oppression, it will be on our table next time. But if we defend ourselves against oppression, we are also paving way for better treatment for ourselves. This is the truth about solidarity. And solidarity must be multiplied 1,000-fold, even within our country, Kenya, to liberate ourselves from oppression. We must unite, stand in solidarity with one another, and pushback against all forms of oppression.
When people question on the funding, because that's usually a very controversial thing, every time someone is maybe arrested or a human rights activist organizes for something, then most of the people or critics who push that agenda are usually on, there is a lot of funding. So
Which funding?
There are people who will question, like, who funded your trip, or not even like the whole team actually.
I cannot afford my ticket to Tanzania or to Uganda. Is that what is being suggested? The things we do daily. Why has nobody asked who funds me to go to court in Kenya? Haven't I gone for many people in court? Who funds a neighbor when they go to put out fire? That is not a question to ask. And there are people who contribute. Even yesterday, when we learned that Boni had been dumped in the South Coast, you don't wait a minute. People will make calls to each other and within a minute organize. Kenyans know how we organize. Didn't you see Kenyans funding? Kenyans who had fallen to the bullets of the KK regime. Those who were injured in hospital and those who were there for the burials. Shouldn't that teach you something? Sometimes all you give is your time. Sometimes you give money. The Human Rights Defenders Network knows how to organize itself. Even bail is paid for those activists who get to go to court.
Great. Yeah. When we look at the idea of this whole human rights activism, and now you come to the Kenyan space, even with this case, we saw a lot of politicking about it. We saw even Senator Cherargei saying that you people should have been charged in Tanzania. When you see such level of comments from people...
Did you say Chera what?
Cherargei.
I'm not aware, and I'm not going to answer everybody who talks in ignorance. What I've said about the CS Mudavadi and what I've said about negative comments applies to all those, and I will not answer each individually, including undeserving cases.
Great. What would be the lessons we say we are taking, especially as Kenyans, from such happening, and even from a personal level?
It's that solidarity is a must. Unless if we unite to liberate ourselves from oppression, it will become worse. We have a constitution which was kept aside by William Ruto when he kept aside the Bible. Because we cannot have torture, abductions, murder, and all manner of things, and theft of public funds if we are following the law. Nobody will come and clean up our house. Kenyans, let's unite and liberate ourselves from oppression. Let us discuss these things. Let us discuss even about the role of money in politics. Those who have stolen our money will come and bribe, and they are the first to pay bloggers to claim those who want to help push back are paid. Whether paid or not, pushing back is a civic duty. The Constitution, in fact, gives each one of us the duty to uphold and defend the Constitution. And our national anthem says we must defend our nation and that we must build our nation together. Pushing back against oppression is building our nation. This country will be liberated by me and you, by standing in solidarity with each other.
Do you think this whole thing will develop or rather affect our relations with Tanzania on other businesses moving? Because it's a diplomatic affair looking at it on the larger scale.
I don't think our leaders care about the ordinary business person. They care about the business they do as leaders. We are aware of gas business being done by top officials cooking gas in league with Tanzanians. We know they trade with each other. We know of a top leader who has hundreds of petrol stations in Uganda. So they think the Jumuiya is for them. They don't care about us. That's why we must unite to liberate ourselves. And no, long term, this will have no effect. Leaders come and go. East Africans must get leaders who really build the Jumuiya, who really liberate not just the Jumuiya but Africa in the way the founding fathers of Africa, Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere, and Jomo Kenyatta at that time thought about, among others, because they were thinking of a united Africa. That dream, we must take it forward. I must do what I must when I still have strength. But your generation, everybody's generation has its work cut out. Let us rise up. Our continent is rich and blessed, endowed with resources, human and otherwise. Nobody else will rescue Africa. It's you and me. Unite, liberate.
I love that part. What's the status of Kizabe Zije at the moment? Have you been able to?
He's well. I was there yesterday. Is it yesterday I came? I was there on Wednesday. Yesterday was Thursday. I was there on Wednesday, came on Wednesday evening. The court put off the matter to 29th. To my surprise, yesterday evening, they circulated a production warrant for today. So Besigye was in court today without me as the lead lawyer. The other lawyers were there, and the state was pressing to amend the charges. After a standoff, the lawyers walked out on instructions of Besigye, who said his case cannot go on without the lead lawyer. So the case is coming up again on the 29th.
Oh, so you'll be back. But how is he doing mentally?
He's of strong spirit. Besigye is strong. God has blessed him with a spirit that is unbreakable. Lutale is also strong. They both encouraged by the strength they espouse. The health cannot be the same as the health of a person inside. But through the grace of God, they are well and resilient.
Yeah, great to hear that. And we wish him all the best. And you also, as the lead counsel, all the best with that case.
Thank you.
Now, just something I wanted to touch on back home. There's been an issue of the state seal moving from the AG's office to State House and all that. What does the law say about that? And how do you feel about that whole debacle of being told it's there, it's not?
The seal must be with the Attorney General. And if I remember correctly, that's one of the controversies that made Dr. Ruto move Muturi from Attorney General to public service, because they wanted the seal in State House. Muturi was saying it is not possible. They have now amended the law through the back door, which again is unconstitutional. The Attorney General is the legal advisor of the government, so he advises when to put the seal. How do you put the seal in State House? Who will advise? Or is Dr. Ruto now advising Kenya on legal matters? This means that they want shady contracts and any-like contracts which they can stamp with a seal in State House. I do not know whether the Attorney General signs after they have signed or whether they have her electronic signature. Only they can explain. This does not augur well for the country. We are being sold short. We now hear they are actually scheming on how to bring Adani by any other name back to the airport and back to many other contracts. Kenyans must be vigilant. We are being sold short every day.
Out of just curiosity for those of us who may not be familiar, what does the Constitution say about the seal?
I would have to refer to say the exact, but I can tell you generally speaking that it is not permissible, and it has never happened since independence. That should tell you something is terribly wrong. That the seal of the nation has never resided in the State House. It's like saying the surgeon's instrument for surgery be at State House. or the Kenyatta hospital anesthesia be at State House to be applied by anybody who passes by. The legal expert is the Attorney General. The seal is affixed when something is being sealed in law, an agreement is being sealed in law. The seal cannot be where the expertise is not. If they told us they had moved the Attorney General's office to State House, then perhaps it could be at State House, but still in the office of the Attorney General.
All right.
Yeah.
Great. And finally, there's a court case about the IEBC nominations, and there are 3 names that have had an issue around that. Not to comment on matters legal, but what's your feeling?
I'm not privy to the case, and therefore I will not comment. And personally, I would not single any individual in IEBC. I would just say the whole commission is a William Ruto commission. It was never meant to be an independent electoral and boundaries commission. But we are saying that even if Ruto himself becomes the chairman of IEBC, with unity of purpose, we shall still make him one term. So Kenyans should not be worried. Let us focus on bringing people together and uniting to liberate and to ensure that is one term.
All right.
Yeah.
Your closing remarks to Kenyans and the larger East African nation, because now you're taking East Africa by storm, actually,
is that we must unite to liberate, unite within our respective Jumuiya nations to push back on the state excesses. To the opposition in all 3 countries, you must come together. The people of East Africa, Jumuiya, want change in the respective countries and in the way the Jumuiya is working for them. They want a Jumuiya that works for them, countries that work for them, economies that work for them. Therefore, this is our time. Let us unite and liberate. Unite at the level of citizens, unite at the level of opposition leaders, unite at the level of defenders of justice and freedoms, unite as professionals. Let's unite across the board and liberate ourselves. And remember, even in everyday life, solidarity is key. We must continue to stand in solidarity. I am not sad for being excluded in Tanzania. Who knows? Tundu Lissu may be the next president and the elections are in October. I'll then go back to celebrate. Viva solidarity. Viva Africa. Viva freedom and liberation. Unite and liberate. We must never surrender to oppression. And as I was taught in Uganda, never, never, never surrender. Never, never, never surrender.
Wow. Unite and liberate indeed as EAC. Thank you so much, Senior Counsel, for coming through. We appreciate and we love you. And we learned a thing or two, actually, which was very important. And we wish you the very best. Wish Boni quick recovery, and we support him as citizens in general in his well-being. Thank you for watching.
And pray too for Agatha. She's our sister from another mother. Yes.
All right. Quick recovery to Agatha too. And thank you for everyone who spoke out for Kenya, because at the end of it, we are all Kenyans, and also for the Ugandan. Thank you for watching.